back. This is Your World at 10. Now, the political season has begun, and on Thursday, we had the creation of a third front. 9 parties came together. The 4, communist parties, that's the CPI, CPIM, the Forward Bloc and the RSP, as well as the JDS, the TDP, the TRS, the AIADMK and Mayawati's BSP. 9 parties have come together to create the third front. Tonight, we ask, even though it's early days, whether this third front poses any serious challenge to the 2 leading national parties, that's the Congress as well as the BJP, and whether they're likely to have any cohesive economic program these 9 parties put together and what that could be. The guests tonight on tonight's debate, Sudhir Pai, Professor of Political Studies at JNU, and Rajya Sabha Independent MP Rajiv Chandrasekhar, also a well-known business personality. Rajiv, Professor Pai, thank you very much for joining us. Professor Pai, I come to you first. How seriously are you taking this motley collection of 9 parties as the third front? We've had third fronts before. I'm sure we will always have them in coalition politics. But this coming together, does it pose a serious threat to either the Congress or maybe even the BJP?
I don't think so. I think the front, at present at least, is at best a bargaining counter or a bargaining platform. Because both the UPA and the NDA don't seem to be very strong this time. And particularly the NDA's allies are deserting it. So this is, I think, a way of bargaining and getting the best pre-poll and post-poll maximizing gains. I would not take it at this point at least seriously. It doesn't seem to have any kind of cohesive organization. It doesn't seem to have any common minimum program. So I don't think really it's a very serious front.
All right. At one count and one report says that together these 9 parties, I think, represent roughly about 70 seats. Could they lead to any kind of seriously fractured voting patterns, Professor Pai?
Well, the percentage of votes that regional parties have been getting has been rising. There's no doubt about it. But whether they would be able to come together and form a front afterwards is, I think, a very serious consideration. And so far, the Congress heading the UPA seems to be placed at a more advantageous position by all accounts.
I'll come to you, Rajiv. It's a pre-poll alliance. Do you likely think it will be a post-poll alliance as well to contend with?
No, I think, Menaka, there is a bigger issue here, which is effectively the center of gravity of Indian politics is slowly but surely moving away from the national parties to the regional parties. Now, that's a reality. The center of gravity has been increasingly moving towards that direction. We have almost all of the large states now being ruled by directly or in coalition with regional parties. Now, that's point number 1. Point number 2, this discussion and debate about compatibility and coalition. I mean, the fact is the UPA was not a pre-poll alliance. It was a marriage constructed after an election. So I think political expediency tends to, glue together unlikely relationships far more surely and faster than pundits will give credit for before an election. After the election, usually these things tend to coalesce much quicker than logic would dictate.
Okay, Rajiv, let me put this question to you from the business aspect then. I know it's early days. They have yet to come up with any sort of common minimum program, if they do at all, and that would therefore include also their economic policy statements. But do you think that these 9 parties are likely to have much in common when it comes to economic policy making?
Look, Menaka, the fact is, I think there's something that we're missing here. I mean, for example, the UPA and the left, when they came together in power in 2004, they did not have any common minimum program before elections.
Sure.
But they sat down together and figured out that, political expediency dictated or political reasoning dictated that they come to a common minimum program. And I suspect a lot of this will repeat itself as we go down coalition politics. So what is not terribly obvious before an election becomes sort of obvious after an election. And a common platform tends to emerge. Now, whether that is satisfactory to economy, whether that's good, whether that's right of center, whether that's left of center, it really is going to be dictated by what the numbers are going to be and where the center of gravity lands itself.
Okay, I'm going to come to you whether this is going to be satisfactory for the economy and business in just a bit. But Professor Pai, do you agree that if these 9 parties are able to stick together post, the polls, they will come up with some sort of common minimum program that could bridge the various differences amongst these parties, and we might be, however distorted it is, be presented with some sort of common front?
Well, expediency does seem to bring parties together. But I think if you look at these various parties, there are considerable differences among them. For example, the left has its own program. Mayawati has a fundamentally different kind of agenda once she comes to power, which has become quite clear where UP is concerned. She might be talking about, carrying all sections of the people together, all castes together and so on. But if you actually look at many of the programs that she has put forward in UP, it's largely for the lower castes. And she has a definite political agenda when she comes to power. That may not match with many of the others.
Sure.
It would be very difficult and for them to work together. And I don't see any coherent economic policy which would suit the country emerging out of it.
Rajiv, what do you have to say to that? No coherent economic policy. Does it worry you? I know that we had the case, even with the UPA, you had the left, which had a very different ideology as opposed to the Congress. But see what happened in the last 5 years. And so, can you expect any kind of political consistency from this kind of third front?
The most important worry for me is not so much of a coherent vision as much as the inherent instability that such a coalition or such a disparate coalition implies. I'm not that concerned, about whether 10 of them or 11 can draft together a document that makes for excellent reading. That's really not the point. The point is about the inherent political volatility a disparate group of parties like this will represent. And what we don't clearly want is an Italian-style government which is in power for 1 year and then we have elections every 2 years. That kind of political instability is far more dangerous and damaging to the economy than the lack of some coherent, great inspiring economic vision. And I think because those things will play itself out. We know what the economy needs. We know what kind of investment and what kind of stimulus the economy needs. The issue really is about the political volatility or instability that such a coalition will represent.
Last question to you, Rajiv. We are in 3 months of no policy making, a policy freeze, so to speak. If this kind of third front was to come to power, even in a broader alliance, you have so many different interests contrasting and playing each other out, we are definitely not going to have a coherent economic policy. There are many people in this country and in business who believe that, listen, we're firmly on the reform path. Some parties may take us on that path a little faster, some a little slower, but there's no reversing that path. Do you agree with that, even if we were faced with the spectre of this kind of motley third front as an important constituent of the government in a few months from now?
I'll tell you, I kind of agree with what Professor Pai said. I don't think there's a risk of a third front government or a possibility of a third front government.
No, as a constituent of the government.
Yeah, but I think the fact is we already have a coalition or coalition politics where parts of or wholes of these third front elements are already in play.
Sure.
So the issue really is not economic vision, Menaka. I think the real issue is how quickly can a government hit the ground running on restarting our declining and impaired economy. And that is the biggest task that a new government has. And what we should hope for and pray for is a government capable of taking on that task.
All right, Rajiv, Professor Pai, thank you very much. Early days as yet. This is just the beginning of our political coverage. I'm sure we'll have many more conversations with many more experts joining in on the weeks to come as we count down to the elections. Well, thank you very much, both our guests, for joining us tonight.